Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are undertaking, well, a really deep dive into the life and legacy of a giant, Ratan Tata. His influence is just immense. Steel, cars, tea, you name it.
Yeah, and this one feels a bit different because, while we're talking huge corporate strategy, global deals, big innovations, the source material itself, this biography summary, it really pushes us towards a more philosophical angle.
Exactly. That's the mission today, right? It's not just listing the acquisitions or the profits. We want to find the kind of blueprints of his character. What were the key leadership lessons? What values drove him to, well, completely reshape what global corporate leadership could even look like?
And we'll track it chronologically, thematically too, looking at his roots, his rise, those massive global moves, but always circling back to that core question. How did this guy, known for being quiet, pretty humble actually, transform this huge, almost old-fashioned Indian conglomerate into a global powerhouse?
Well, and this is the key part, while insisting that contributing to society was like fundamentally more important than just making money.
That's the puzzle, that tension. Huge global ambition on one side, deep personal humility and ethics on the other. It's fascinating because the whole Tata structure with the trusts kind of goes against typical capitalist thinking. We need to figure out how he cemented that, especially when facing, a lot of pushback.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. Where did that quiet strength come from? Rasan Tata, born December 28, 1937 in Mumbai, parents Naval and Soni Tata. But his early life wasn't typical, was it? His parents separated.
Right, and that's a critical early detail the source points out. He and his brother were mainly raised by their grandmother, Nawazbai Tata. And this wasn't just like a change of address. The source suggests this was fundamental in shaping his values.
So what did that upbringing instill in him, according to the material?
Yeah.
What traits emerged back then?
Well, three main things seem to stand out. He was quiet, naturally, possessed a real humility, the source uses the Hindi word vinamtar, and maybe most crucially, he developed this strong sense of self-reliance, atmanirbhar, from pretty early on.
Self-reliance.
That's interesting. You don't always associate that with someone born into such a prominent family who might be seen as an heir.
Exactly. It suggests he wasn't expecting things to be handed to him on a plate. He learned to sort of navigate things himself. This upbringing, a bit removed from the immediate corporate power structure,
Mm-hmm.
maybe prioritize inner character over just, status or entitlement.
And you can almost draw a line from that to the later ethical core of the Tata group, can't you? That deep-seated sense of duty.
I think so. You look at the ethical weight, the way the group operates, the lack of compromise on certain principles. It feels less like a corporate policy and more like something deeply personal, anchored in those early years. It wasn't just written down, it was lived. And that probably gave him incredible inner strength when he faced opposition later. It wasn't just bluster, it was conviction. So that foundation of character gets laid early. Then comes the education piece. World-class global exposure started locally, Cathedral and John Connon School in Mumbai, but then the big move off to the U.S.
Yeah, and this is where you see the precision thinking really develop. He went to Cornell, got degrees in architecture and structural engineering.
Architecture and engineering. Not business school first. That's significant.
Very, because his initial training wasn't about quarterly returns or financial engineering. It was about building things, designing structures, understanding how components fit together.
Architecture demands foresight, doesn't it? You have to think about load-bearing capacity, long-term integrity, potential failure points way down the line. It's systemic thinking.
That's a perfect way to put it. That training likely instilled a deep respect for precision, for balance, for designing things that last, resilient systems. He learned how parts, whether steel beams or later subsidiary companies, need to work together to support the whole thing. A weak link, a weak foundation, disaster.
So how did that engineering, architectural brain then get layered with the necessary business skills?
Well, that came next. He added the strategic layer by doing a management program at Harvard Business School. So you get this, frankly, extraordinary combination: rigorous structural thinking, an architect's long-term view, plus top-tier management training.
You can really see how that blend would influence his later work, right?
Yeah.
But especially the massive restructuring he undertook.
Absolutely. It suggests he always understood the kind of operational physics of the business first, the blueprints, before jumping to the financials. He wasn't just shuffling numbers, he was solving structural problems within the organization.
And that structural thinking, that hands-on approach, was put to the test immediately.
Yeah.
When he actually joined the Tata Group in 1962, the source materials are clear. Despite his education, his name, He didn't start at the top, not even close.
No, absolutely not. And this seems very deliberate, part of the JRD Tata philosophy, perhaps. He started right on the shop floor at Tata Steel.
And we're not talking about a quick tour.
No, no. This was hands-on. The source is specific. Working alongside the laborers, handling molten iron, dealing with the machinery, really getting his hands dirty.
Just pause and think about that for a second. Breathing in the fumes, feeling the heat, understanding the sheer physicality and, frankly, the danger of heavy industry. That's a world away from Cornell or Harvard.
It's a foundational lesson you just can't get from a textbook or a case study. It teaches you about labor, about process, about the real-world challenges of production in a way nothing else can.
And the biography calls this practical start the strong foundation for his leadership. Why was that so important?
Well, think about it. Years later, when his chairman making decisions about efficiency or safety or worker conditions, his directives carry weight. They come from a place of understanding, not just theory. He'd been there. He knew what he was asking people to do.
So it built respect from the ground up, maybe, not just based on his name.
Exactly. He earned it by showing he understood the reality of the work. It meant his decisions were likely always tempered with that practical knowledge, not just abstract models. It contrasts sharply with how many corporate heirs or even standard MBA grads might enter a business.
Okay, so he builds this deep, practical understanding. Then comes the big moment. 1991, JRD Tata appoints him chairman of the entire Tata Group.
Yeah.
But the source says this was anything but a smooth coronation. It was difficult.
Oh, massively difficult. You have to remember the context. 1991 is the dawn of India's economic liberalization. The game is changing. And the Tata Group, while huge and respected, was this sprawling, decentralized empire.
A collection of fiefdoms, almost. Powerful companies run by very established, very autonomous leaders, sometimes called the Tata satraps.
That's the term, yes. And into the steps, Ratan Tata, relatively young, quiet, trained as an architect tasked with bringing cohesion and modernizing this massive, entrenched structure.
So resistance was inevitable.
Intense opposition and criticism, according to the source. These established leaders, these satraps, they questioned his ability. They maybe saw his quiet nature as weakness. They were comfortable, powerful. He represented change, centralization, things they didn't necessarily want.
So what were his first big moves? How did he start to impose that structural vision he must have had?
It wasn't about flashy acquisitions yet. The initial turning point, the source suggests, was more about imposing coherence. Standardizing the Tata brand, for instance, making sure all these companies actually felt like part of one group, adhering to a central ethos and quality standards.
And wrestling control back from those powerful CEOs.
Yes, gradually asserting the authority of the center, Tata's sons, forcing them to align with a group strategy rather than just their own company's immediate interests. It required incredible political skill, patience, and courage, because he was going up against legendary figures within the group.
How did he overcome that resistance? Not by being loud, apparently.
No. The source emphasizes his calm, methodical approach. He relied on his decisions, backed by that long-term vision, the Doordarshita the source mentions. He wasn't playing for quick wins or engaging in public battles. He was focused on restructuring the group so it could actually compete globally in this new liberalized era. It was about the long game.
And proving, slowly but surely, that his quiet vision was stronger than the loud opposition.
Exactly. He outlasted them, essentially, through persistence and the undeniable logic of needing to modernize and centralize to survive and thrive globally. #Tag3, the global transformation and innovation drive.
Okay, so he navigates that internal consolidation, maybe the toughest part. He establishes his authority. Then his focus shifts dramatically outwards. The next phase is all about global scale.
Right. Having sort of put the house in order domestically, he turns to the world stage. And his strategy becomes incredibly ambitious, using major international acquisitions to basically buy Tata a global presence fast.
It wasn't just about growing. It was about acquiring technology, market access, established brands, building that Vaishnavic Pichan, that global identity the source talks about.
Precisely. And these weren't small bets. They were huge, transformative deals. Calculated risks to catapult this Indian conglomerate into the global big leagues.
Let's tick off the big ones mentioned. First, Tetley Tea in the UK.
Yeah, that was significant early on. Showed Tata wasn't just about steel and trucks. They were moving into global consumer brands, getting that direct connection with Western consumers.
Then the really big one, industrially speaking, Corus Steel in Europe. That was massive.
Monumental. It instantly made Tata Steel one of the world's largest steel producers. But it was also incredibly complex. You had the challenge of integrating Corus's high-cost, high-tech European operations with Tata Steel's lower-cost Indian base.
That sounds like a huge structural engineering challenge in itself, fitting those two different systems together.
Exactly. It required that architectural mindset again. How do you make these two vastly different structures work together efficiently? It was about creating global scale, vertical integration, managing complexity across continents. A real test.
And then, the one everyone remembers, perhaps because of the brands, Jaguar and Land Rover, JLR, bought from Ford in 2008, right in the middle of a global financial meltdown.
The timing. Buying these iconic but struggling British brands when Ford was desperate for cash was, well, strategically masterful. But it was more than just a good price.
There was symbolism there, wasn't there? An Indian company rescuing these symbols of British automotive heritage.
Huge symbolism, and handled with real grace by Ratan Tata. He committed to investing, to quality, to innovation. And against many predictions, Tata turned JLR around spectacularly. It proved they can not only manage, but actually revitalize premium global brands.
It silenced a lot of doubters, I imagine. Validated that long-term vision, that Doordarshita that maybe people questioned back in '91.
Absolutely. It showed the group could handle high-end complexity, global marketing, everything. But then almost immediately, his focus pivots again, showing that other side of his vision.
Right, from luxury cars to the people's car. Chapter 6 dives into the Nano project.
And this really captures the duality of his leadership, doesn't it? The same man overseeing JLR is pouring heart and soul into creating a car for the aim at admit the common person in India.
The dream was incredible. A safe, affordable alternative to the scooters and motorcycles that families were unsafely crowding onto.
It was an amazing feat of frugal engineering, stripping costs, rethinking manufacturing, pushing the boundaries of affordable design. The vision was widely applauded globally.
But the source is honest about the outcome. It says the Nano was not very commercially successful. Vyavsayic रूप से बहुत सफल नहीं.
And this is where it gets nuanced. Why did this brilliant idea, this functional car, ultimately stumble in the marketplace?
What went wrong?
Well, it seems like a mix of things. Maybe underestimating aspiration. People want affordable, yes, but maybe not the cheapest. There was a perception issue, perhaps a stigma. Then there were marketing and distribution hurdles. And significant political controversy around the initial factory location really hurt its launch momentum.
So commercial disappointment. But the source says the effort, the innovation, the thinking behind it that was still praised worldwide. Poor Vishwani Saranaki. How do we square that circle?
It tells us something crucial about how Ratan Tata and maybe the Tata Group measures success. It's not only about the bottom line. The Nano was perhaps a moral success, a visionary success.
So,
It showed the world that Tata was willing to take huge risks driven by a social mission. It cemented their image as innovators focused on broader societal needs like safety and accessibility. Even if it didn't make billions, the attempt itself had value in defining the company's character. For Ratan Tata, trying to improve millions of lives was a success metric in itself, regardless of the immediate profit.
and that idea of societal benefit brings us straight to the ethical core of the whole thing, the Tata Trusts. Chapter 7 really digs into this, the focus on social upliftment over just commerce.
Yeah, and this isn't just, a feel-good CSR department tacked onto the side. This is baked into the very structure of the Tata Group, something Ratan Tata fiercely protected and strengthened. The source is clear. The priority is uplifting society.
Explain the mechanism again. How does it actually work structurally?
It's quite unique, especially for a conglomerate of this size. The Tata Trusts, a group of charitable organizations, own the majority stake, something like 66% in Tata Sons.
Tata Sons being the main holding company for the entire group.
Exactly. So think about what that means. The profits generated by all those companies, Tata Steel, Tata Motors with JLR, Tetley, TCS, all of them, the majority of that wealth doesn't go to private shareholders in the typical sense. It flows back to the trusts.
Which means the business's primary financial beneficiary is philanthropy.
Precisely. Maximizing profit for Tata Sons effectively means maximizing the funds available for the trust's charitable work. It fundamentally redefines the purpose of the business. It aligns shareholder value directly with social contribution. It's kind of capitalism, but with a built-in ethical engine.
That's radical. And Ratan Tata's role was ensuring that structure remained paramount.
Absolutely. He ensured the trusts stayed at the heart of the group, financially and morally. And their focus areas are critical for India's development. Education, healthcare, rural development, Grameen Vikas, basic essential building blocks.
The source also mentions their consistent response during crises, natural disasters, other emergencies.
Yes, the Tata Group is known for stepping up immediately and significantly during national crises, often very quietly, without seeking publicity. It reflects that deep-seated belief that the company has a duty to the nation.
And beyond immediate relief.
Ratan Tata also pushed for long-term investment in, intellectual infrastructure. Donations for research and science showed Arvijan always thinking about building capacity for the future, not just solving today's problems.
So the corporate structure reflects this ethical commitment. What about the man himself? Chapter 9 touches on his personal ethos. He remained unmarried, Avivahitrai, known for a relatively simple lifestyle, despite his position.
Right, and that personal simplicity, that lack of ostentation, really lends credibility to his philosophy about corporate success, when he says, as the source notes, that the true meaning of success is contribution to society, Samaj ke liye yogdan.
It rings true because he seems to live it personally.
Exactly, it's not just talk. The source identifies these core personal traits: simplicity, saji, honesty, imandari, and this strong sense of duty or integrity, kartavyanishta.
That word again, kartavyanishta, duty. It seems central.
It really does, and that consistency between his personal conduct and his corporate philosophy is key. Think back to 1991 again. When he was pushing for ethical reforms and centralization, people might have disagreed with his strategy, but it was hard to question his motives because he embodied those values himself. There was no hypocrisy.
And this integrity, this blend of business acumen and social conscience, it's been recognized widely, hasn't it? Chapter 8 lists honors and achievements.
Oh, extensively. Nationally, he received India's highest civilian awards, the Padma Bhushan in 2000, the Padma Vibhushan in 2008. But the international recognition is just as strong.
And how is he viewed globally?
Consistently, the source says, as an ideal industrialist and a social worker. Adarsh, Udyogpati, or Samaj Sevi. The two descriptions are always linked.
You can't separate them in his case. The business and the mission are one.
Which leads us right into the final chapter's assessment of his legacy. He obviously strengthened the Tata Group immensely, financially and structurally, getting it ready for the 21st century.
But the legacy is more than just a stronger company, isn't it?
Much more. It's the vision. It's the human values, Manavemuya, he embedded into the corporate DNA. It's a leadership style that, the source suggests, serves as an inspiration, a model for future generations.
And that final lesson hammered home.
It circles right back to the beginning. True success in Ratan Tata's world isn't just about profit, keval munafa kamana. It's about making a positive contribution to your country, to your society. That's the ultimate measure, the ultimate structural integrity, perhaps. Hashtag Hatek outro.
So if we pull all these threads together, the self-reliance from his childhood, the structural thinking from Cornell, the shop floor grit, the global ambition, the unwavering ethical core, what's the unifying theme?
I think it's that he proved something quite profound, that embedding deep humanitarian values isn't a drag on business performance. It can actually be a source of strength, resilience, and long-term competitive advantage.
That's a great synthesis. The resilience he showed in 91, the boldness of the global deals, the commitment to the trusts, it all seems to stem from that kartavyanishta, that sense of duty.
Right. The shop floor gave him the how, the architecture background gave him the what, in terms of structure, but maybe that upbringing, those values, gave him the why. Why build this massive enterprise? For what purpose?
And the answer wasn't just personal wealth. It was collective good. He managed to be both deeply practical as a manager and fiercely accountable to society.
It's a powerful counter-narrative. Building a structure designed to last means building something ethically sound, socially integrated. He didn't just have a philanthropy department. Philanthropy was the business model, in a way.
So the key takeaway for you, the listener, today, Ratan Tata's story is a powerful case study. It shows that integrating deep human values with bold corporate expansion isn't just possible. It might even be essential for enduring success. It challenges that old idea that profit and purpose are always in conflict.
He chose to measure success differently, with an ethical compass, not just a financial one.
Which leads us to a final thought, something for you to chew on. Given Ratan Tata's conviction that real success is societal contribution, what would need to change structurally, thinking like an architect in business schools, in leadership training today, to foster more leaders who prioritize that contribution as fiercely as they chase profit?
What does duty kartavyanishta even mean for a global tech company today, or a fast-growing startup? How do we design systems, incentives that genuinely reward building societal value, not just short-term shareholder returns?
Some big structural questions to ponder. Thanks for diving deep with us on this one.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.